É isso, recordo.
Good afternoon, boa tarde a todas, todos. É um grande prazer ter de volta aqui o nosso colaborador, já de longo termo, já considero assim, Alexandru Stermin, e ele tem já colaborado conosco há mais de 5 anos. Agora nós firmamos um novo termo de cooperação internacional, um novo ciclo está começando, e tem sido super produtiva essa colaboração com o nosso programa de pós-graduação em Ecologia e Evolução e com o nosso laboratório de Ecologia de Arte e Comportamento, com quem ele tem colaborado mais de perto, mas também está aí aberto com interações a outros membros do departamento e da universidade. O doutor Alexandru Stermin, que a gente chama carinhosamente Sam, ele é professor do Departamento de Taxonomia e Ecologia da Universidade Félix Bolyai, da Romênia. Depois que ele realizou o mestrado e o doutorado em biologia, ele fez mestrado em filosofia e outro em psicanálise. Vocês sabem que o Sandro é uma pessoa inquieta, ele está sempre buscando coisas novas. E a partir de 2003, de 2023, não satisfeito com um só doutorado, ele passou a estudar coexistência como tema de sua tese de doutorado em filosofia, que ele está realizando, no processo de compreensão da relação homem-natureza. Atualmente ele leciona ecologia humana, anatomia comparada e etologia. O Sandro ele publicou 4 livros que visam explorar e cultivar essa nossa relação do homem com a natureza, avaliando esses livros estão assim avaliados como dentre os primeiros livros de humanidades ambientais da Romênia. Ele é completamente apaixonado pelo Brasil, pela Mata Atlântica, e ele se sente totalmente aqui em casa. Então, aqui no nosso laboratório, ele se sente como se estivesse na segunda casa, é assim que ele fala, e pela forma como ele tem sido sempre acolhido, e por isso ele tem sido muito grato, e nossa gratidão ao Sandro por toda essa colaboração e parceria. Sandro, thank you so much for presenting this talk to our program, o programa de pós-graduação em Ecologia e Evolução. E você, então, com a palavra.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm really happy to be here again. Hope it will be next year and so on. So today, as you see the topic, I will talk about conservation biology and philosophy, a transdisciplinary approach in human ecology, environmental humanity. So, what I will try to do, all the topic will be about explaining the topic. So I will try first to take the philosophy and to see some ideas in philosophy, and then I will try to see how can we understand the way that now today we are working on conservation biology through these ideas in philosophy. And then we're trying to see what we can do to change something, because as you see, nothing in this world is perfect. First of all, I try to introduce you in this field of the philosophy that we're working on, and it's called existentialism. So, in this kind of philosophy, we are dealing with some questions about ourselves. We, as humankind, are coming in the world, and first of all, we try to understand who we are in relation to ourselves and in relation with the world. And that's the problem of identity. The first problem of the existentialism of this kind of philosophy is the identity, who we are. After that, when we realize that we are and we are in this world, and we start to have some answers about our identity, we are trying to find a way to be better, to live well. So we are asking ourselves, how can we live to live better? So that's the second problem, is the well-being. But we have so many things to do and so many choices to make to be better, because we understand that we are in this world and we can be better according to our choices. We have to choose between A and B. If we choose A, then we think it will be good with us. We will live well, we will live better, we will be better. But it's not all the time like that. So when you choose, if it's not good, you have to assume what to choose and you have to take the consequences. And the way that we are trying to choose in our life things to be better and to live well, it's the freedom. It's the problem of freedom. That's why we are happy to be free. But freedom is not all the time good because you have to assume the choices that you make. In the same time, you see, it's the identity, so we know who we are, and then we want to live better, and then we make choices. And suddenly we make more choices, and with these choices, we think that we are good and live well. But what happens if somebody who is next to us it's not um, according to our choices? If somebody who wants to keep in our life doesn't agree with what we choose, what we are doing? We go with the choices that we make, or we give away to the choices and we stay with the person that we want to stay. And that's love. Love is the way that we are in this world alone and we do whatever we can to be part of something bigger than us. That can be a relationship, that can be a group, that can be a church, that can be nature, that can be universe. And sometimes we give up to our freedom just to stay in contact with somebody or something more than us. That's the fourth problem of existentialism. But in the same time, sometimes we give a lot the things that we want to choose just to have somebody next to us. And in this way, we have more and more people around and we love them. But suddenly we lose them because they die. And in the same time, we realize that if we lose them, someday we will die too. And that's the fifth problem of existentialism. It's the death. We are dying. And you see, we came in this world, we try to find our identity, we try to understand what means living well, and then we have the freedom, and then the freedom is fighting with love, and then the love is fighting with death. And looking back to all these monsters, we ask ourselves, what's the meaning of our existence here in the world? And that's the sixth problem, the meaning of life. So as you see, that's somehow the architecture of the existentialism. And what I'm trying to do now is to take these skeletons and to try to understand how we use these things in our relation with nature and what we are doing with it. And in this way, we will go on nature conservation. So, if we look back to our relation with what is alive around us, we will see that the first thing that we've done in our culture was to split the world into. So we have the wild and the domestic. What's the wild nature? The wild nature is that kind of nature that is free. It's not acting according to our choices. And the domestic one, it's the one that we can control. It's the one that stay with us around, but it's doing the things that we want to do. It's not the free nature. So the domestic one we can control, and the wild one we cannot control. But this wild nature still exists. And how we deal with it in our freedom, we split it also into. It's the useful one and the best. The useful one is one which, in its freedom, it's doing what she wants, but it's according to our objective. And the best are the one that, in its freedom, it's doing what we want, but not according to our objectives. So, what we've done with this wild nature that we consider it best, we want to make it disappear. And now I will show you an example of what happens in Romania 50 years ago. You have here that's a kind of journal in Romania that was published in 1954, and we found like that a wolf is destroying 52 animals per year. These 52 animals that the wolf is killing, they are 1,000 kilos. That means that if in 1953 we killed more than 3,000 wolves, we save 3 million kilos of meat. And what they've done in Romania, they kill animals and they put inside of these animals poison and they put it all over Romania. And in 1 year, they kill more than 3,000 wolves. But what happens? The wolves in Romania lives in packs, in groups. If you have a pack with 5 wolves, they will go and hunt in the wild animals. But if you destroy the pack and you will have just 3 wolves and they are not so powerful, they are coming to eat in the villages because they are not strong enough to eat the wild animals. So in this way, the wolves are coming to attack people and they don't understand why. Suddenly the wolves, now we kill them, and when we kill them, they come and destroy the villages. In the same time, they said like that, we have 20,000 cormorants killed in 1954, saved 6 million of kilos of fish. So what they've done in this year, they start killing all the cormorants. And for this, there were many diseases in the fish population, and more fish died because there was nobody to control the population of the fish. And also, there were a lot of worms in the water that attacked the animals. They killed also the pelicans because the pelicans eat a lot of fish. So we split the world in different concepts and we start fighting against it. And also the things were coming over us. First of all, the wolves start attacking the villages, and in the same time, because we want to kill the wolves, in that year we killed all the vultures of Romania because the vultures were eating the dead bodies of the animals that we put poison on. So since then, we don't have any more vultures in Romania. It was the end of the vultures. So you see how we want to fight with this wild nature that we don't like. And what happens? When we realize that we people are bad and are destroying the nature, we came up with something 20 years ago. We, we split again the world in two. And we said, okay, so we have conservation and exploitation. We will leave this wild nature in some parts and we conserve it. And then we took some other parts of the nature and we exploit it as much as we want. So that means that here, where is conservation, people are not allowed to do whatever they want. And where it's exploitation, people can do whatever they want. So that's the story about the freedom in relation with nature. And now, looking back, we see this. We all the time split the world into wild and domestic, useful and pest, conservation and exploitation. And if we take a look to this story, what do we see? Here, which one is the bad? It's the wild nature is bad. Here, the pests are bad. But we came in the end of the story. Who is bad here on conservation and exploitation? People are bad because we destroy the nature. So what we've done, we use our freedom to gain control of nature, and in the end, we became the bad guy of the story. And that's not all. Now we know that people are bad, but in the same time, we want to control nature, and we want to take its place, and we want to create things that nature creates, to be much more free in front of it. And in 1994, we said everywhere that we create a tomato. We call it flavor saver. And we said we create this tomato that it keep the savor for a long time and you can send it all over the world. And the people were really happy because suddenly we became totally independent from the nature. We start to create our own food. And everybody understand that. And we were happy. But what actually we've done? We changed two genes from 33,000 of genes that the tomato had. Those 33,000 of genes are the genes coming from the nature of millions of years of evolution. And we change just two and tell everybody that we created. It's like somebody is coming and take my last book and change two words, and then they said, I wrote a book. No, it's not that. We didn't create any tomato. We just changed something there. But why we did that? To tell everybody that we are independent. And in this way, what we've done, we split the reality in two. It's culture and nature. And we live really deep in the culture and we want to stay there. We want to be protected by the nature. Because all these things, wild and domesticated, useful and pest, conservation and exploration, are some ideas that are coming from the culture. And to see everything in a different world, in a different way, because it's really hard to stay in the culture and see the nature in another way. So we have to leave this culture and move in another one and to try to understand our culture. So for this, what I've done since 3 years, I'm going and living for 2 weeks with the indigenous people in Brazil. That's in Mucina and that's in Xingu. Mucina, it's a reserve. I was in a small aldea near to the Paraguay River. As you see, they live in small houses, and that means that they have a warrior history. Because usually the this indigenous population that they have a warrior history back, they have small okas, small houses because they have to move all the time after the wars. One day I was going with Kasik in the forest, and what he told me was that we were walking in the forest with jaguars, with tapirs, with big animals. And he knows where are the places, where are the tamandua. And then I asked him, why do you know where are all these tamanduas? I mean, why don't you know where are the jaguars and tapirs? And he said, because our name is Guapo, and that means that Tamandua are our ancestors. So after we died, we became Tamandua. That means that he told me I was with my niece in the forest, and there was a Tamandua crossing the path. And my niece said, look, that's the grandfather. And he said, my niece recognized him. So they are our ancestors. And in this way, in Umuchina, we have different aldeas, and each aldea have an animal that they care about. And Kasik told me, if somebody needs to kill a tamandua for some rituals, they have to come to me and ask me, where should I go to hunt this tamandua? And I will send him where is the most tamandua. If I need to hunt a peccary for a celebration, I will go to the aldea where there is the cacique of the peccary and ask him. And in this way, they did two things. First, they answered to a problem of identity in existentialism. Who we are Chamanua. And then they fixed the problem of death and of love. Yes, we love each other, but we don't lose them because they are here with us and they become Tamanwa. How I got in this idea? I was reading some papers on anthropology written 30 years ago, and they said that these people live in the okas with animals and they talk with them like they are part of their families. And it's indeed, they think they are part of the family. So in this way, they don't need conservation ecology because they take care of the forest as they take care of our world because they take care of the people who live in the forest, their ancestors, and the place where they will live after they will die. It's like they live in the heaven. The caciques have a group and WhatsApp, and that's the photos of the profile. See? Yes, one day it was a kind of celebration, and there were many people coming from other areas. And as you see here, that's a girl from a pintada, that's a fish living in Paraguay. So each that's from a jaguar tribe, and they have this celebration. Yes, and then I was to Xingu, and I was living for 2 weeks in Kalampalo, in 2 different years. And as you see, they have huge locusts. That means that they don't have like a warrior history behind. And usually they were eating fish and beiju all the time. And one day there was a ritual, and they were dancing. And this is me. And what we've done, as you see, we have some leaves here, and we were going around the singer with those leaves, and we were doing like birds. And then I asked Kasi, what we are doing here? And he said, we are dancing the parrot dance on the fish music. And then I asked, how do you know the fish music? And he said, because somebody was with the fish. And they talk with the fish, and the fish have a celebration. And he listened to the music, and he took the music in the village. And now we're dancing. So they talk with the animals. But that's not all. They are also getting married with animals and with plants. We have here the not water lily. No, we call it agape or gudure. That's how yeah, so agape. So they said that once a man was fishing and he saw this flower and said, "Oh, you are so beautiful." And after he finished the fishing, when he get on the way back to the village, there was a woman coming in front of him, and he said, "Look, I'm the water lily. You told me that you like me. Let's get married." And they get married. And then the woman was living in the village with the man, and she was cooking, and she was cooking the best fish that everybody ate before. And the sister of the man, of the husband, wants to find the secret and was looking to her what she's doing, and she saw that she's peeing on the fish because the urine she's urinating on the fish because in the urine it's salt. So in that way, she put the salt on it. But the sister of the husband went and tell to everybody what happens, and they would put shame on her. And she went back in the river and became a plant. But the people understand that it's something inside. And since then, the people of Shingu take the soul from this plant. And in this way, they drink the soul. Also, there is a story about how Shingu appeared. And what happens it was that there was a man who was going to hunt. He was the chief of the tribe. And suddenly they said it was a collective hunting of the jaguars. So the jaguars were collectively hunting and catch the man. And the man said, "Don't kill me, because home I have some girls, and you can marry them." And in this way, the jaguar married one of the girls, and that's how the Shingu people appear in the world. So as you see, the people are getting married with plants and with animals, and also they change culture from plants and animals, and that for me was totally made me crazy. In Europe, we call this zoophilia. And and also, how can you marry a plant? But this year, I start understanding what happened. People in these ideas, in this community, they don't get married to make kids, to perpetuate the species as we think. They get married to make a bigger network of people around. They get married to have more relatives. I mean, I have my family with my network, and I'm getting married with you to create a new network. And this from this network, what is happening? Have exchange of culture and ideas as they bring the ideas from the fish. I have exchange of food. They bring the food, and I have exchange of protection and power. They bring the protection from the jaguar. So the way that we think about marriage, that we get married just to make kids, it's it's not somehow the only way. You know, in Romania, the gay marriage is not accepted. Why? Because they said marriage should be between a man and a woman because that's the only way that you can make kids. But if we look around us and back, we will understand that marriage and love, it's not just about making sex and kids. Love can be more than having kids. It's about creating a network. It's about being part of something bigger than you. And in the end, what we can understand. So in our culture, we use freedom to get power. We use our freedom to have power over the nature. But what happens if we look to the power from a philosophical way? The power is all the time killing something. The power is killing the love. When we want to get power over the nature, we kill the love from nature. What we kill, the relation that we have to nature, the connection that we have to nature, all the other things that we can get from the nature. What means ideas, culture, food, and protection. So, as I told you, we lose this part, this constant way of being part of something else. And what we have to do now? There is a word in the Amazonian, in the Shingu tribe. They said like that: before the white man coming, there was nothing wild. They don't understand what means wild because they don't split the world into wild and domestic. So if we go really deep in this culture, we will understand that there is no wild. If there is no wild, there is no domestic. If there is no domestic, there is no useful and pest. If there is no useful and pest, there is no conservation and exploitation. And all these concepts disappear. And what we understand that not are not the humans who are evil, because there are people living in contact with nature all over the world. So it's not us who are bad, it's the concept that we use. And what's happening, it's strange. This concept, they are coming inside our brains and they are starting being alive and they are doing things like viruses. So the concept create the culture and somehow the culture is bad with the environment. And for this, we need ecology of culture. We need to go really deep in our minds and see which concept affect the nature around us and what we are doing. So from this, we need an interdisciplinary and open field of approach. We need the people coming from the humanities, like from psychology and from philosophy, and to talk with the people coming from the biology and from hard sciences, like from conservation biology. And they have to come together and try to understand what is behind us, what's in our culture. And for this, we have the environmental humanities, which is a new field of trying to understand the world. Somehow was established in 2012 when two paper was published, and it's a way of trying to bring together the humanities, sciences, and the environmental sciences. Why? Because in this way we can reconnect with nature. And we can reconnect with nature in different ways. We need all these five levels. The first one is material. We have a material relation with nature. We know that. We take the woods, we take energy, we take everything from nature. But in the same time, we have our experiential relation with nature. We go in nature to feel good. And also cognitive. It's what we are doing in biology conservation. We try to understand the nature. But that's not enough. Also, we need an emotional relation with nature and a philosophical relation with nature. There are people living today who deal, who, who, who somehow metabolize all these existential problems in relation with nature. When we are talking today about death, we don't solve the problem in relation with nature. We solve it in relation with art, with philosophy, and with religion, but not with nature. When we talk about love, we don't solve the problem in relation with nature, in relation with literature, with psychology, with everything. So all these existential problems today, we are fixing them in the nature, in the culture. But somehow we have to open the gate to nature and reconnect with the world around for an emotional and a philosophical experience. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer. But I cannot answer to the six existential problems because that's one of their problems.
I believe your principal position. I think a basic problem for me is this view is too European. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
That atomic view is bad, good, evil, or devil and God is too European. And I think it arrived in Brazil not only by the European colonization, but also um, by the Christian religion, because it's based in these so for the most people from not entirely colonized in Brazil, you will not have this. Not only indigenous, but they are amazing. Exactly. And even if you connect, for example, with Afro Brazilians that eats from candomblé and others, you will see this ecotonic village is not too strong. So if you will connect these ideas with Brazilian native think, I think start from the dichotomic view would be a way to, how can I explain this? Try to fix this world and in European view and not embrace truly this native Brazilian way to see the world. And for me, a strong example from this view is when you say that the culture, let me go back in the one more. The more, no, I think
It's about the culture is bad.
yes, the culture is bad. But when you say that, you are denying this culture for these people.
What I said. Yeah.
So you are saying that this powerful and culture that is changing the entire world, it's bad. Okay, but you cannot when you put these terms, you are denying a culture for these other people. So for me, that is just like when the part is arriving with you and said that we need to teach these people how to be civilized.
Yeah, I totally understand you, but I think I make myself understood wrong. So this problem with this dichotomy, it's totally European. 2 months ago, I was in Vietnam and I was talking about this because in China, in India, in Africa, there is a totally different perspective. So when I said that the culture is bad, it's not the culture from here. It's the culture from when I come, from the Occident. Because what I said, you see here, when I mentioned this, it's like the people from here don't use our culture. I mean, they said before the white man was coming, there was nothing wild. I mean, here, these things, it's not working. Here, there is no dichotomy. So we have to understand what they are thinking and took some things from here and bring them in Europe. Or maybe that's a huge idea. What I want to do is like to understand more our European culture. And if we are, because when I'm coming here, to Brazil. I don't want to understand the culture from the tribe because it's very hard and very deep. What I want to understand is to see a totally different point of view and go back and ask some questions. I ask them, look, they don't believe in wild. That means that what we believe in their culture doesn't exist. So how should we look to the nature again without thinking to that? So what I'm trying is to understand that this European way of see the things is wrong for the nature, not the people. No, I didn't understand your position. It was more like what, how you create the narrative and not, you know. For example, when you start to presenting this dichotomy, you are saying you are presenting like the overall truth, but it's not. So, when if you say, so I am here to tell you that this overall view that is so common in European, it's not the general rule for the world. Broad concept, Yes. So you're saying that all the culture of the indigenous country, this is people around the regional people, but society is it. But this view, it's not as in but I don't agree that I think that they have the useful. I don't think they are as dichotomic, but I don't think they are as constructive as we are. But I think they see things as useful and they put value on it. You know what I mean? Like indigenous people, and I mean, with my experience with the indigenous people and the Riverside community, not with capital descendant from the American, with the others, yes. You know, when they see, like, for example, like Brazilians, we know that we thought like before that a lot of the Brazilians before the distribution was modeled by Aguti and other rodents that could eat it. So, but people have discovered that indigenous people actually harvested them, so they were placing them in a way that it was useful for them. But I do think that they have this useful value. I don't know if they have like pests. Probably didn't have things that they don't like, but I don't think they are as destructive as we are. You know what I mean? Yes, I totally have a very different relationship. They are sustainable. They don't have the concept of property, the money. They do. I think they do. In the original culture. I think it is sensitive than our money, but they do have like property. So I think that we have. Just answering. Yes, you just let me try to understand. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Because of course they look to the world and they see, yes, this wood we can use it for the houses, this fruit we can eat, the other one is not. But how they get to this point of this is good, it's not on this schematic world. That I agree with. So of course they see bad, good or bad, but not really black and white as we see, and not with power. It's more with relation. I have a better relation with this tree and not so better relation with this one. It's not like I like this, I use, and I hate this. It's like look, so let's say you are in love with somebody, and if you really love him, You want to make not him suffer. You try to not make him suffer. But if you love him in a kind of egoistic way, you don't want to lose him because in this way you will not be happy. So it's about thinking to the other or thinking to yourself. Yeah? Of course, they look to the world and say, yes, this I care more about this than this one, but it's not like a property, like a way of you want to have, like a kind of egoistic way that we. Of course, if I'm going in China, because Vietnam is part of the China, they don't have this existential philosophy because existentialist philosophy is something coming from Europe and from the west of the Europe, from France and from that part of the time. So of course, and also this kind of philosophy is not according to all the Europe. If I'm going to the village and I'm thinking to my grandfather and my grandmother, it's not really like that. But what is happening now in Europe, all the conservation politics, it's coming from this kind of philosophy. And that's something that I want to break and change. Looking around the world to different cultures that somehow have a different culture and have a different way of understanding, different concepts. Yeah, please. Thank you. I lost my mother. Um, not long time. So, to a friend of mine, I studied poetry, music, philosophy, psychology. I work with science. I work with books. I song. I work with film. I work with sun. And I saw the trees. I try to meet and to some things that I learned, um, like questions to Orient, Indians, and I, I, first sight, I respect that nowadays the people stay trying to connect to something more strong, to so silence your mind and to connect to not living with outside and spirit. So to nature, and I now nowadays I live in the field and the people work hard and the weekend the holiday in summer and Friday um, dancing and listen a lot of music and 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 the yeah, I understand what I mean, and I'm sorry about your mother and the way that you lose your mother, but I think you're on a good path because connection is something that helps us go over the pain, and the music is something that connects us. So you see, all the time when we lose something, we have to connect with something to feel that powerful connection. And it's good here. I see people on the street. I mean, how I feel here in the university. Everybody's hugging. It's all the time this connection. Europe, it's a kind of individualistic culture. Yeah, it's very different in the Oriental. Yes, and it's totally different completely because their equality is amazing. But it's really good Maya, thank you for telling me that I'm coming with this philosophy, which is based in Europe, and it's just a small part of what culture means. Yeah.
Just continue the skill that we already had. Uh, I agree with that point of view. Maybe the problem is the words that you choose. You know, the culture. Culture is a broad word. It's a broad thing. So I will just make money with Kyle that the problem is the capitalism, not the culture. That's a part of the culture. So because all this from this quotation, when you categorize something as used, for example, it's a kind of philosophy that we started with capitalism. So maybe that's
And on the capitalism, we're just here. We're just on this part of material.
uh-huh.
That's all. We don't have this.
Uh-huh.
With the correct me if I'm wrong, but I have read that most of the indigenous people don't have the concept of money, of property. Everybody have the share the objects.
Yeah.
So I think it should be economy the problem. Once I had my own computer and it's mine, and I have to buy it. I don't share with anyone. It's not my friend. This would be
You prefer the same concept.
I heard, I read someone telling that give a present to some people, indigenous people, and they at the same time they give to another. And they ask why. I tell given to them, no, it's not mine. It's us. It's from us. It's from the village. They have not the individual concept of material. I don't know if I'm right or if it's general or auto cultures. But I think the money is thing that is related to all the concept that you present to us in the is.
Oh, yes, but there is a modern living here because, for example, if you take Japan, for example, I think that. So it's a completely different culture. You have the new technology, high technology, but they can live in the traditional way because the culture is completely different and they have this God that is the quality. So completely different. There is no dualist way. The God is inside you. It's not outside you and fighting instead.
Yeah, but at the same time, Japan is not the best example for observation. Uh,
On the other hand, they are much better than all.
yeah, yes, I agree.
They small.
I agree. I just consider that the point that Kyle raised for us is true. You know, maybe the concept of material thing that's this thing is mine and it's yours. For example, this is my property. This is my place, or I can
But
put a fire here if I want.
is
You
that
know, it's mine. Uh-huh.
the next thing is the quality. The
Uh-huh.
individual comes later. It's completely different the Occidental way.
Mhm.
There is no this conflict so much evidence as in the European culture.
But on this component, it another way you was tracking the listen to like upon views, they are materialist or not. It's not that way.
Yeah.
Every human being has some level of materialism.
But economy was the economy.
They have they don't use the money as we do with the economy. Yes, they exchange things. So this is economy too. So we cannot this this kind of thing it's really complicated because we once more try to put daily way to live or see the daily way to live by our eyes, not try to stay in their position to see the world.
What is the actual answer? And what is so much? Yeah, because is having this concept as well. What is the right concept? Qual seria o conceito correto? em relação a essa questão que a gente está falando assim, não é economia, mas a gente.
Não,
É economia, mas não é cultura.
não é
É a cultura, mas qual seria a forma que a gente vê, então, assim, para a gente poder entender ou explicar para o professor como que seria a forma correta de ver
you are trying to disavow the world. There is no complex situation. You have a complex solution. You don't have a simple solution.
Just one thing that we should consider that one of the most important extinction age that we had was in the Pleistocene, and we don't have capitalism, we don't have economy, and etc. But we came to America and extinct the most megafauna. So
Yeah, what I
yeah,
think, what I feel like, I'm not sure yet, but I found a way. It's not the social network, it's not the economy, because also they have. I think what is really different from Europe, it's the identity. I mean, in Europe, we think from the Christianity that the God made us totally different than on the world. So if you look to a tree or to a chicken, you say they are alive, but it's not the same life as in me. So we have the power to control and do whatever else because they are things. You think you're better and you're a kind of God, and all the others are different than you. Evolutionary biology told us, no, we are the same network. Here, people in Brazil, no, we are the same network, and you will get married with plants and animals. You go in China and they say, no, it's yin and yang, it's all the time a river, it's growing. And you go in Japan, we have this, we are totally different in everything. The human is the identity of humankind, which is coming from the Christians, and then from the Christians is coming from the Jewish people and the Platon philosophy.
yeah.
What happens? We in Europe, we have the story about the Platon cave.
Yeah.
When we in Europe, we live in the Platon cave. We didn't have we that's all. We have to get out of the cave.
I think you said this in your presentation, but basically the problem is not to identity. The problem is when you think your identity, your culture, make you better than others. So
Give you power.
you are allowed to propagate this culture or whatever because you are better. So the world needs to share this too.
But in the same time, I look to the people in Shingu. Let's say we have two aldeias. One of them they are eating fish, and the other one they are not eating this kind of fish. And when you try to understand why, they said some about gods. But anthropology said that they make these different choose in their food to have an identity. I mean, we are trying to not have the identity because that's why identity is a philosophical problem. You will never have it. We are doing whatever we can to have the identity. But when we have it, we lose it because there is no way.
Culture is changing. It's not static.
Of course, but in Europe we want to stay static because we are the best God, they can do this.
Mother raised a good point. Is about power because
It's about
yes, and you say that the power is love.
because if you change your culture, that means you're not in power. It was not good before.
Yeah.
You change something which is good. But if you keep it like that and you say, we in Europe, we have a culture that doesn't change for 3,000 years, that means that we are the best. No. Life is changing, cultures have to change. Yeah. People
But
are
it costs. So when you admit that you can be better, truly, so you are admitting that you invest some time, something that was not so good. It's easier to keep your first decision.
It's very hard to change.
Yeah.
bad or good is different. some different cultures. Of course, is kind of
Right.
difficult to make this comparison. Yeah, it's very deep.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was very good translate. Yeah, so other translator gonna have to.
yeah,
Because they were just trying all the time.
but even in Vietnam, people doesn't understand what it's individuality, what's the identity,
Yes.
because they're in a kind of communism.
Yeah.
It's not they, we are all the same. How can you come and tell me that I have the power to choose? So for them, all this ideology is totally different. But I have then the question that and I understand ourselves.
Yeah, and but perhaps in this population, yeah, they think that they are part of it because men need to be part of something.
Yes, yes, they are not part. They are the
It's very hard to swim against it.
We are the most social species in the world.
it's ants.
Eh?
Ants. Oh.
No.
We don't even have jaguars.
It's fine. Good point.
Because European deformation, right? But good European about the tropical forest economy. That we can maybe measure that the distribution of the growth of the animals. What is like deformation? The deformation. Yes, the loss of biodiversity.
Yes.
What,
Animal.
what Europe think about them?
Simple, the ligands, the walls, yes, and it was a measure about the relation, the numbers of the hand walls, for example. You say, well, but this European, right?
Yes, that happened 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago, we stopped and we started to conserve. It was the point when we decided to make some protected areas. And that's how the Natura 2000 became. But in the same time, we realized that it's not working as we want. Because it's like, let's think, we have conservation and exploitation. What if I'm going in the forest to take mushrooms and to enjoy the silence and to get healthy? That's not a kind of exploitation.
Yeah.
But in the same time, you can conserve it. You go in a forest and you take just some species, not all of them. So that's kind of exploitation in the conservation. So now we are trying to understand these things and open these protected areas for the people to live inside, to, to rebuild again the bridges, because there is no conservation and exploitation.
But I said about that the information here in South America, the majority of the tropical forests. Maybe we can measure like the European areas. We lost many animals in the forest, but we can um, usually we can't measure this loss of the
And to
animals.
measure,
Yeah, maybe you can go for one survey, the preserve area, but maybe you lost many animals before you arrived. Anybody else? Because we can measure. So you don't hear about in the places that you are. You don't.
usually in Europe, when we talk about South America, we talk about deforestation in the Amazon, and there is a lot of marketing that if you buy that and that and that, the wood is coming from there. If you buy, soya, they destroy the forest. And also, it's the climate change that affects the fires. But I think because there is biodiversity here and the network of the biodiversity is totally different than in Europe. So it's really hard for a European biologist to understand what's happening here. I remember when I was in India, I was like a kid. I discovered a new world. I mean, with so, and in Rio Grande, you have um, as many species as we have all over Europe. Yeah. So are different connect.
It's not so biodiverse as other
Yes.
places in Brazil.
Or in Pantanal.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, it's weird for people as us. In Amazon, you not yeah, na forest Ilha Grande.
The professor talked about this concept of the ecological science of the natural. And when I go to the forest, I have to myself, this is a it's a legal right of religion. It's in our constitution. We have the right to have some places to connect ourselves with nature. Believe it or not, because we are.
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, you're not allowed to go with the tent in the forest because it's a private property.
Yes.
But in the same time, in Canada and in Japan, now the doctors give papers to the patients to go in the forest, in the national park, and the government pays them to get healed. Yeah.
I never heard about that. Very well.
We think how the science progress with one the time. Because when I um, they teach me um, how to words that the concern by protected our areas need to be without any body, any many people. Um, so the people can use a root to conserve the fauna that lives in this place. And time that I we can nowadays it's as the society well together to forests and then also places in the world and like the urban ecology. So it's always evaluation what the progress and think others want the thinking in conservation.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. But what we've done here was a kind of environmental humanities talk, coming from different point of view, asking questions about culture
And all these fundamental questions. Usually we have received that is something good. Why are you looking for that and that I'm satisfied? Because we all have these questions.
yes, and there is no answer. No answer. We will never have identity. We will never be free. We will never be really connected.
It's a very interesting. Not understand how Professor Maranisi was so happy the first time he came here and talked to me. But I for the first time I saw your work and congratulations. Too much interesting. I hope to read your books. And you are very welcome here in Rio de Janeiro. Thank you, Professor. I thought you didn't have to be really damn something after all, you did, yes, guys. Also, is that